Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen here with Linda Armstrong and Rita Giganti. Today is Friday, October the 9th, 2020. It's 4 p.m. New York time, and wherever you are in the world, thank you for joining us for another episode of LOA Today, your daily dose of happy. And we have a guest this week. We were supposed to have two guests this week, but it didn't quite work out. Our old friend Harold Peck, who is back from his 500-mile walk across Colorado, was supposed to join us today, but I guess he's still kind of recovering from that walk. He's not quite up to par yet. And it was going to be fun because Harold, of course, is ex-military, and I recently received a contact from another gentleman who's also ex-military who has become a psychic medium. And I thought, well, that would be a really fun show. So we'll have to kind of save that for another time. But Dean McMurray is able to join us today. So Linda and Rita, I want to introduce you to Dean. Dean, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. Nice to meet everybody.
Nice to meet you, too.
Yes.
It's great to have you. And I'm going to let you give the potted autobiography to let people know about your background. You and I kind of went over it before the show, but just give them a little one paragraph.
Right. Born and raised in a little town up in northern Minnesota, right on the Canadian border. Right out of high school, went right into the military like a lot of kids. And subsequently went on to serve about 14 and a half years with the Army. Did a lot of fun stuff, a lot of what I call government-sponsored vacations with them around the world. And I like saying it like that because it makes me feel better, right? So government-sponsored vacations other than deployments. Hey, get your bags, get on the plane, right? And then after Afghanistan, I decided I kind of made I'll call it a pact with the universe or God and said, hey, if you keep me safe, I'll kind of do the old aspect of settle down and start a family and, turn my weapons into plowshares type deal. Well, oddly enough, not from North Dakota, which is farming country, but here I am and met my wife. But I came to North Dakota really for the military because I got a full-time gig, I call it, with the National Guard and went on to serve another 10 years with them around the state. And so, ended up retiring about 7 years ago with 24 years, and which in itself doesn't, I guess in my book, doesn't make it really special. But the thing that I like sharing with it is prior to my awakening, I call it, was I was just the atypical guy, right? I was military, and if it couldn't be found in regulations or books, it didn't exist in my world. If you couldn't shoot it or blow it up or eat it or what, it didn't exist. And maybe the weirdest conversation I would have to that point was if my wife wanted to fuse a certain oil. Be like, well, what kind of oil do you think we should do? I'd be like, I don't know, So about 3 years, I had about 3 years to go before my retirement. I had just returned from my deployment to Kosovo. And my youngest child, my son, was just born. And my grandmother came to visit me one evening real late. And a lot of people say, well, that's doesn't seem very crazy, but my grandmother passed when I was about 10. Now, for an atypical guy, putting all the pieces together, right? An atypical guy not believing in spiritual awareness and spirits and all that great stuff. And then all of a sudden having I almost call it a cataclysmic event that, was almost like the kick in the butt that I needed, was, the 2x4 up alongside the head where she showed up. And it was just a knowing that she was there, that clear cognizance. And I was quite literally like, how do I know that it's grandma? I'm having a conversation with myself in the kitchen at midnight by myself and thinking, oh my God, this is how people end up in the padded room, and I'm like, am I having some type of psychosis? I'm trying to analyze myself and realizing that, maybe I just need to go to bed because my ego is doing flip-flops trying to figure this out. But my heart space is saying, you know what, Dean, it's okay. Grandma's not here to hurt us. And I'm thinking, oh my God, My head is hurting. I just need to go to sleep. And of course, I'm laying in bed knowing that my grandma's there. So I did what anybody else would do, is I started talking to her one way. Wasn't receiving messages at this point. And of course, hey, Grandma, how you doing? I love you. I miss you. All that typical normal stuff. But then my drunk friend, my ego, I call my ego my drunk friend, because the ego says, you're making it up. This is all BSing. You're just full of it. You're maybe a little scared. Let's put the logic to this so your small brain can figure out, right? That's what my ego is telling me. But right away, I said to myself, if she was really here, she would prove it. And as soon as those thoughts left my head, the room turned absolutely frigid. And like it was January in the Midwest, right? And I was like, holy crap, who did I make mad? And I was like, how do I stop it? And
okay, turn it off.
Right. But then what was so funny is I, of course, went back to that, logic place of, it's off peak power. The wife maybe has a fan on. I'm trying to analyze or put logic to these events that I have never experienced to this point. And, and then so simply my ego comes out and says, you know what, if she was really here, she would touch you. And that way there's no question what's going on. And as soon as, again, those thoughts left my head, it was a gentle yet firm pressure from the top of my head to the bottom of my feet, and quite literally pushed me into the bed. And wow. I could feel, I could hear the springs compressing, and quite honestly, the 6-year-old little boy in me came out and was like, holy bejesus, what is going on? And I thought, I contacted the sixth seal, or broke the sixth seal to hell. And I was freaking out a little bit. And I basically told her, Grandma, I love you, but you gotta go. Like, you need to go now. But as soon as I said that, it was like somebody snapped their fingers and everything, like it never happened. And I'm sitting up in bed, completely out of breath, covered in sweat, and going, holy bleep, 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 what just happened? And my wife, who we had a newborn at the time, our daughter was about 5, she was snoring like she has never slept. I've never talked to a mom that has newborns that are completely out, but she was that evening, just divine, situation. But, I'm waking her up going, there's somebody here. And she's thinking, oh my God, there's somebody breaking in. And I'm thinking, no, that would be easy to explain. And I could deal with that, something physical. But how do you deal when you start like, was I making that up? Was that, how do you deal with a spirit or in my head at that time, a ghost, or, how do I deal with Grandma that's deceased from the 80s? Oh my God. And so, so I said, my wife, a little backstory, when I was in Kosovo, she had told me that she had been seeing a local psychic to get some answers. And she was always that was always her interest, psychics and mediums. And so I was jokingly referring to this lady in my area as the voodoo chick. Now, I just got to preface this by saying that she does not do voodoo. And she went on to become a teacher, a friend, a mentor, and a friend. Oh, nice. Through the years. But, so in the early days, though, when all this is going on, of course, the words come out of my mouth, get a hold of the voodoo chick. There's something weird going on. Because who do we all know who we turn to if you break a window, if you need work done on your car, if you need, something fixed on the sink. But where do you go? I mean, some people don't travel in those circles per se, right? And I didn't have a go-to psychic. I didn't that wasn't my deal. And I'm like, who do we do? Right. You just don't look up, and at least in our yellow pages, you didn't. And, hey, Ghostbusters, right? So I was like, call the voodoo chick. And so, it was really a series of progressions after that. But when my grandmother actually came to visit me that evening, really that was my awakening. And from there, of course I went back to her and that psychic. And I said, why now? Like, here I am in my early 40s. And I'm like, why now? You know, why me? I didn't go looking for this. I didn't want to become a psychic. I didn't want to have these experiences. And she's like, Dean, it doesn't work like that. And I was like, well, tell me how it damn works, because I don't want it. How do you shut it off? And she was like, there is no on or off. It just is. It exists. And I thought she was talking in parables. I quite honestly probably told her that she was smoking her own sage. Probably a lot of things. But the thing that I found out, I was like, as I went along, I was like, oh, she's right. Like, but it was really, I needed to start somewhere. And the universe was like, hey, sending my grandmother, because, you know, having the physical connection since I was little. And so, you know, where, you know, literally where she lovingly, you know, kind of proverbially hit me across the forehead with the old 2x4 to be like, you need to wake up and you need to do it now, because you have a lot of stuff to get ready for, and it's going to take a while on your timeline. But I didn't realize that, because it was just like, you know, kind of getting out of the car while it's going at 300 miles an hour, it felt like. So
I got to interrupt. I got to ask Rita, because I don't know if we ever actually did this, Rita, but after Dean tells his story, I'm curious, is there anything similar to your story when you had your first psychic experience that you remember?
As far as the mediumship goes?
Well, just you know, anything that is similar. I mean, he had this really wild experience and it kind of threw him.
Yeah. Well, it was very, well, Spirit knows me. I would have fucking ran like in the other direction if they didn't do it slowly with. So when I had the experience, I was already familiar, whereas Dean was not familiar with anything. I was already familiar with some of the stuff before it happened. And I was having experiences as a young child, but not knowing what those experiences really were. Yes. So it's kind of a little bit of a different, the one surprise was when I was able to speak to the other side, which for the longest time, that wasn't my ability. You know, I called myself a psychic healer then. And then when that happened, I was just like stunned, you know, but I wasn't afraid because I understood and I knew what was happening.
Yes.
So, that's, I think there's the difference. Like Dean has no reference, you know, like he's explaining his story with no reference. So that would scare the shit out of anybody.
Yeah.
For me, I had reference,
you
know, so, it was a little bit easier. Dean, I give you a ton of credit, man. That's like, you know, especially coming from the, you know, the left side of the brain that you come from, and being in the army, and, you know, yes, everything is physical. You know how to deal with the physical. You would have preferred maybe somebody broke it.
Right. Yeah, I would have actually.
Yeah. So, I think it's fantastic. Have you since then opened up your abilities?
Yeah. So, you know, that was about 10 years ago. And then, you know, it was just a normal, like, following the rabbit hole, right? And so, and then going to classes, and just kind of, it was an insatiable appetite that just developed itself. And once I really kind of said, well, if I'm really a medium, what does that mean for Dean McMurray? Like, I knew, of course, everybody knew the name James Van Praagh and John Edwards. It was before Teresa Caputo and the others that are on TV. But I was like, I know what it means for them. I've read the books. I know what it means there. But what does it mean for me? Does it mean that I'm going to be given readings? Does it, you know, and so I kind of really went on a self-discovery. And so I started taking classes and the whole thing and reading more. And it was just like I couldn't consume enough. Like, it was like you almost get addicted to it, right? It's just like more and more and more and more.
Oh, yeah.
And then, but then the abilities started to develop themselves. And it was interesting, Rita, because you talked about where you weren't able to communicate in the beginning. That's how it was, at least initially for me. And then all of a sudden it was so weird. it was like one day it was like an answering machine, like the old school answer machine, like beep, kept on going off in the back of my head. And I'm like, and I sat with it listening, quite honestly, listening to it for 2 days, 2 frickin' days. And finally I was sitting in the living room. I still remember it. And I'm like, I like almost screamed. And I said, damn it. I said, it was just driving me insane. And I couldn't figure out how to answer it. Like, how do I talk to them? And I said, finally, I almost yelled out to my wife, you need to call the voodoo chick. I don't know how to access this. But it was more to get me over that hump, so to speak. And it was, I find it looking back so comical because the way that spirit and the universe has gotten me to, get over my own hangups and to coax me like, hey, let's bug the hell out of him because he's going to ignore it for 3-4 days. And then finally he's just going to go, and then he's going to do it. And then, and that's what it took. And then, but once I, in a sense, started down that path of exploring mediumship and it was, at first it was like drinking from a fire hydrant with messages, and then it would dry up, and then I couldn't really control the information until I really took a course in it to understand, hey, to play with the ebbs and flow of energy and how spirit and the universe were communicating with me. And I found it really interesting. And then really I took a year from that and just started giving readings, wasn't charging anything. I was like, and it was still very much, Dean the Soldier by day and Dean the Medium by night. So it was quite honestly, because it was, I was still doing the full-time gig with the Army. And then in the evenings, of course it's family stuff, but all the little, pockets of time, that you have sprinkled around, that's where I would do the readings. And, people be literally coming into our home and we'd go in the basement and we'd do readings and, was trying to figure out how mediumship was shaping up or developing for Dean and where I wanted to take it. And, and it was interesting because if you would have told me back then, oh, you're going to be doing this full time and all this, because I was planning to work for the VA as a full-time employee. And when I retired, because that was a normal course for me. And, of course, in that you start getting readings as well. And, there was another gentleman, he became another teacher, but he told me in a reading, he goes, yeah, you got something big planned, but he goes, you're not going to be doing it. You're going to be doing a 360 degree. And it was in the early days of my development when I kind of looked at him and I was thinking, this guy's nice, but he's just nuts. Like he doesn't know what he's talking about. And and so he was so correct because here I was thinking that I'm headed towards the VA after retirement. And he's like, no, you're not going to be doing that. And it was such a normal progression for me right before I retired, started the whole, hey, let's start a business and, all the businessy type steps and all that crazy stuff. And that's been, good Lord, that's been 7 years now. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing, humbling work to be able to do this in a full-time capacity. So.
Linda, you have a lot of experience yourself with that energy connection he was talking about. And so I'm wondering how much similarity do you hear in your own story to the story that you're hearing from him?
Well, my story is much different. And it actually was from my own injury, and healing my own injury brought me to coaching and healing and learning more. And then the intuitive stuff just was developing. And so things got easier for me and I got more in that flow. But I don't do mediumship, although I've taken mediumship courses. I was in the course. I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? It's like, I just followed a friend of mine, Rita Knows Row. I'm like, I didn't even know it was a mediumship course, but I did like 3 of them. But what I wanted to say too, though, is that I wish Harold was here because he's another military guy, and you call it, I like how you say voodoo chick. For Harold, it's hippie shit. It's all this hippie shit stuff, you know, that he totally was like, boom, he's, gun in his mouth, white light comes, messages come in, and his whole life changes.
And that would have been,
that's
the
very
dream.
Similar.
Yeah.
Huh?
That's why we wanted to have them both on at the same time, because that would have been a fun
it's
show
too
to
bad.
do.
It's too bad. Maybe another time. Time.
Yeah, we'll aim to do that again.
Well, you know what? And thank you, Rita, for bringing that correlation up. It's really funny when I talk about that with folks, is people really draw the, how do I want to say, similarity between that. Everybody, I guess, in their mind believes that they have to start off as a believer or whatever the case is and saying, this is where I was when this started, like, hippie shit or voodoo chick, whatever your frame of mind is, and saying, that's okay. There's no judgment, but saying, keep an open mind to that. And it's crazy what can happen.
Yeah. So I guess I could add to that with my story is that I was teaching karate. I've been a graphic designer teaching karate. I've always been in this kind of world, but not to the degree I am now. And then I just woke up one day, couldn't lift my arm. I didn't injure myself. It just boom. And that was the start of the whole thing.
Wow. Yeah. So
that's how they got me through that and healing myself,
So I guess once again, an example of how spirit knows the person that they're reaching out to. They figured, okay, that's the best way to reach out to Linda. The best way to reach out to Rita was a much more subtle approach. And the best way to reach out to me was...
They actually used... because they knew I was close to Jesus and the Blessed Mother, but not in the religious way, in a very spiritual way, that's how they were able to get to me quicker. Because by using those energies, they knew I felt safe. If they did to me what they did to Dean, forget it. It would have never worked. It would have never worked. I've had things happen after I became comfortable with it, but they know and Spirit does know exactly how to get to you. Right. They really do.
Which is cool and a bit reassuring just in case something like that happens to me. It'd be nice to know it's going to come in a way I can handle.
Well, if you're a healer just in a different way. You get your own messages, but there are those of us who are helping others with our messages in the format that me and Dean and Linda are doing it. You're doing it with this show. You have no idea the enormity of it. It's just as important.
Oh, sure.
As what we're doing.
Absolutely.
No difference.
Absolutely.
There's no difference.
Oh, I agree with that. And I appreciate that. And I get lots and lots of input and feedback from listeners to reaffirm and support that. So definitely, I appreciate that very much. But thank you for pointing that out, because you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. Dean, Linda, maybe we talk to Spirit and tell them to bring him an experience this way.
Maybe. We'll have to sit down and do a little powwow and see how they can.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, one of the things, Dean, that we do on Fridays is we'll take some questions that get sent in from listeners and bring them to Rita. I figured, why don't we let Rita and Linda, and then also you, weigh in on what some of these people are asking about. Just one or two, and see how it goes, if you're up for it.
Yeah, sure. Sounds great.
So this one is from...
This is a spiritual threesome.
Yes, that's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Just to be clear.
So this is from Bridge, or Bridget, and she's actually written in before, and she says, I was hoping you could help me with this. I was supposed to have a procedure on my abdomen that I did not wind up having done. So question is, do you see me needing this?
I do not. And that just came in very clear, and there's no explanation.
No explanation.
They gave me no explanation. They just said, no. Done. So, Dean, if you got something,
well,
Linda.
I would concur with Rita. The only thing that I would say with that is the answer would be through diet. And one of the things that I really feel connected with her is like really severe stomach pains or cramp. I don't know what it is. But yeah, one of the things I would say is it's controllable. Whatever's going on in there is controllable through diet. It almost feels like an enzyme disruption or imbalance of some sort. So, and obviously, get that all checked out. But that's what it almost feels like to me. But diet would be the answer.
Awesome.
Okay.
Linda, what do you got?
I just immediately felt like just trust. For whatever reason it didn't happen, whether it's scheduling or who knows what, just trust that you weren't supposed to have it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I have something, it's usually just what my first impression is. So that's what I'm going with. If it's your abdomen, listen to your gut. I mean, that's what I'm all about, right? Listen to your gut.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Our bodies are always talking to us. Yep.
I'm still learning how to hear them, but yeah, it's important. So, okay. So there's one for Bridget, and we'll do a couple others. By the way, I wanted to share also 2 messages that got sent in. One came in from Barbie about last week's show, and she wanted to let us know that book we were trying to think of was called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. So just a little fill-in information there.
Oh, cool.
And also had a message from Deirdre. Remember Deirdre from Ireland who wrote in last week? And we answered a question for her. And she was really enjoying the fact that she said it was surreal to listen to it. And she also said she loved that Rita picked up on her energy and that the message was positive and gave her lots to think about. She said this is more details about what you and Linda had given her last week. She says, I've just started drinking lemon water as of 2 weeks ago, so I think this is why the lemon card was drawn. Remember, Linda, you drew the lemon card from the deck. I have toyed with the idea of having a baby by myself with a donor, but had decided that I would rather be in a relationship. Anyway, I will just wait and see what the universe has in store, which is what you guys recommended. So a little feedback from another listener, which was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's one of the things we like a whole lot, Dean. Our listeners not only like to send in questions, they give us lots of great feedback.
That's awesome.
I don't know how much you get that, but I mean, feedback is invaluable because first of all, I mean, Rita and Linda will tell you this. It just picks your energy up.
Sure.
But even more than that, it's like, well, first of all, people are listening. And second of all, you're reaching them. And I mean, Rita mentioned me doing the podcast. That's one of the reasons I love doing the podcast. I love reaching people. It feels good.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. I'm not really sure where to go next. I can bring in a question over here from the live stream. This is Nasha. Nasha's mom is ill, and she says she's asking how she can think positive to help her get out of pain. She says she needs to get strength because it's been months that she's been bedridden. So, do you guys have any ideas for Nasha?
How Nasha can think positive, or how she can get her mom to think positive?
How can I think positive? She writes.
It's a choice. I'd say it's a choice. Just do it. Nasha can do it. I know she can because I know her a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a regular. We know her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to share, I just wanted to share something because I was trying to feel a little bit more into her situation rather than listen to spirit, which is interesting. But one of the first things that I smelt around this was the smell of tree bark, believe it or not. So what I'm understanding that spirit in the universe is trying to say is this, is obviously emotionally, she's going through a lot of emotional pain. So if you've ever been in a lot of physical pain and somebody just tells you, relax, 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 it's almost like somebody has to pull the thorn out before you can go, right? And then relax and then get in that state of mind that Linda talked about. I'm trusting that the universe is saying to try some aromatherapy. And, if you want to go and sniff trees, that's cool too. But I don't feel that's feasible for you. The smell of bark or oil of some type or something, aromatherapy would really help you to bring you to a state of awareness so where you can get to that relaxation, just to do it, to get in, you got to make that determination as well. But there's something big there with the aromatherapy. So.
Okay. Rita, did you have anything for Nasha?
But the image I got was that the aromatherapy is, I think, perfect because the Palo Santo came. It's a very good smell. It's a barky like smell. Like I don't know how to describe it. A little sweet. So Palo Santo would be good, but I'm watching her laying next to her mother with her eyes closed, and she's doing positive affirmations, but she's doing it with her mother. Like as she's saying it, the mother is saying it. As she's saying it, the mother is saying it. And it starts to begin to, I'm watching like a swirl of white light around them. And it starts to build the energy and build the energy because what it feels like to me is she's a little depleted, and she needs to build the white light in her and around her, and call back all of her energy that she's given out so that she can continue to help her mom. And that's part of it. So I don't know, this was a visual for me. So I'm just telling you what the visual was.
It's a good visual, and it actually has some very practical steps in it, so that makes it even easier to use. So, good stuff.
Yeah, and do the aromatherapy or the Palo Santo. Have it in the room while they're doing it.
Okay, good. While you were giving your answer, Dean, it occurred to me there was something I wanted to ask earlier because of your unique background. You said that the first psychic experience kind of kicked off while you were still in the National Guard, I guess 3 years before you retired.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking somewhere in that 3-year period, some of your buddies found out what was going on. What was the reaction?
Yeah. So, well, when that was happening, I was actually a supervisor, and I supervised 4 individuals. 3 were in the same office that I was. 1 was remote. So we'd always do the quintessential water cooler coffee breaks, and, where I'd be like, oh my God, I got some crazy stuff going on at my house. And of course, one is, God bless them. And I don't hold anybody's religion against them for anything, but one was very Catholic and very devout in his faith, which is very cool. And he's like, dude, stay away from me. He's like giving me the sign of the cross. He's like, stay away from me. He's like, I'll be going to mass and praying for you. and then the other guy's like, dude, that's so cool,
Rita's laughing there.
Yeah. So it's, so it was mixed reactions. And that's what I found as I've been going along doing this. People are people. It doesn't matter what you do or your backgrounds. Some are believers, some aren't. Some are really into it, some aren't. And wherever somebody is, that's okay. And it's, so regardless whether they're a soldier or a police officer or ditch digger or healer, it doesn't matter. But back in those days, I was like, oh my God, I got to be so compartmentalized. I got to be careful who I talk to because I don't want to be that guy.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure what my commanders would say. I was really concerned, to be quite honest. And so I, in a sense, learned how to turn it on and off, right? And we all know we can't shut it off, but it was while at work, I wasn't connected as deeply as I was when I was at home. I'll just say that. And then right before I retired, I was like, screw it. I don't care. What are you going to do? Bend my dog tags, make me retire. And so then I was always connected and, dead soldiers were coming in the office and, I started all kinds of crazy stuff. So yeah, it was, it started getting pretty crazy towards the end, but I was like, I don't care at this point. And because I wanted to connect to things deeper because I was like, I'm sick of turn it on and off. It gets so exhausting. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's not authentic. That's not who I am. And, because I realized I was more than a soldier. I'm more than a dad. I'm more than a husband. So.
And that's an interesting theme right there. I've explored this with both Linda and Rita in the past, but I'm curious, what do you see as how you compare now to who you were at the beginning of that experience? I mean, how have you shifted and changed?
Yeah, great question. When I first started, it was really, I was self-identifying as Dean the Soldier first and foremost, even before when it would come to, if you asked me who I was, I would tell you right away that I was a soldier. And then I would probably tell you that I was a husband and a dad, right? Because so much of my life and my brain was military. And that's just how I was wired. And then I started losing almost like, or rewiring my brain of like, is this really me? Like losing a sense of identity. But really, I didn't realize at the time, but coming closer to understanding who I truly was at my core. So, I guess how I self-describe now is really in a sense, a student of the universe and really just, but I really hate labels now. Even though I know for business, you got to throw a label out there. Otherwise they're like, what do you do? I don't know. So you got, in a sense, but I hate labels because they paint people in a corner and they're like, oh, that's all you do. And it's like, no, we're so much more. It's like, I don't stop at being a dad and I don't stop at being a husband. And, being a soldier was only part of, my life, and it didn't define me. It made me who I am today, part of it, but it's not who I am. I'm me. And, and there was such a big part of me that I went through like, who am I? Like, I know I have, it was like, so it was really about self-discovery and really losing a sense of myself, which was really good. But then really finding my soul. And then it was almost, in a sense like, well, who is this? The soul and the soul energy and the labels or the facade, if we will, on the outside wasn't matching. And it was because I was incongruent with the way that I was living was not in alignment with the direction that my soul was taking in a spiritual standpoint. And that's why I really just had to let go of everything that, I thought was truth and which was, I thought my world was going to collapse and here I am. So.
By the way, I have to interject. Nasha provided more information. She says it's spot on just because she's been burning tree bark. So you guys nailed it.
Oh,
perfectly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Exactly what's going on.
Cool.
Linda, Rita, do you have anything that you want to bring up with Dean? Anything that you want to ask him about maybe?
Let me just, I had something in my head before, and of course, I'm having a moment. Dean, you said that you were experiencing soldiers that had passed on.
Yeah.
Were they coming to you to get a loved one, like information, or were they coming just to kind of connect and want to know, how's the experience for you being, like a comrade, being like a soldier? They're in spirit experiencing as well. So
well, to answer your question, Rita, I think that it was the latter. I think it was just, hey, glad to see you got your shit together. Now you can talk to us. Because it was, it was actually a fellow squad leader, that I served with in Afghanistan. And the story on him, Lester Kenny is his name. Lester went on, I got out of the, like I shared, I got out of the Army when we went to, or after I got back from Afghanistan. Well, the unit back in those days, that was back in 2003. It's crazy to think it was that long ago. Only were back in the States for a few months. Then they went to Iraq. And so if you got to remember, this was shortly after the ground war in Iraq. And so, but unfortunately, I don't even think he was a month in country. Him and a few other soldiers were killed by an IED. And because part of their job was, route reconnaissance and clearing IEDs and all that great stuff. And I was always keeping in touch with the guys back at Fort Bragg and all that. And, of course, one of the calls back, a soldier that I used to supervise said, yeah, we lost, Sergeant Kenny. And I said, well, that's not funny. We don't joke about that. And he goes, no, really, seriously. And then we talked about how he passed. And I was just stunned. I was like, holy crap. And it just kind of set me back. And then, of course, I didn't really think about his passing until, like I shared, like right before I retired. He was physically manifested, which is a crazy thing. And he was showing up in desert camouflage, the old DCUs, if anybody knows uniforms. But and I had to do a double take, because by this time, spirits were starting to show up in my home and just randomness, and it was starting to the craziness started becoming normal. It was a new normal. And so I did a double take, like, holy shit, what are you doing? Like, you see an old friend, like, dude, what are you doing here? I haven't seen you in years, right? And it was like, and I was like, what do you want? And it was just like he disappeared. And so then I Googled him and there's a memorial page and I looked because I was like, why is he showing up? Because he didn't say anything. And I believe it was to the day that he passed. And of course, I got goosebumps from head to toe. And I was like, holy shit, that's just crazy. And I was like, okay, I got you. I see and validate you. And I was like, it's good to see you, just kind of that speaking in my head. And so it was really just saying, hey, finally I get to visit with you one more time. And see you, kind of like, hey, it's good to see you, like visiting old buddies, right? And so it really, and so it really kind of rocked me back. I sat there for a little while and I was like, wow, like that, it was, and I had connected to loved ones prior to that, like, my grandmother and my dad's mom and aunts and uncles but then that really just came out of left field. And I was just like sitting there stunned. And, because it's one thing to connect to somebody else's loved one. Like you can almost stay empathetically neutral, right? And it's just like, but when you connect to something so visceral for you, that's emotional, I was sitting there just almost a little numb. I was like, okay, yeah, I haven't thought about him in years. And then, and it was like, all right, I got you. All right, good to see you, buddy. So, so it was really cool. It was really cool to have him stop in at work and say hi. So,
Walt, I don't know if you noticed, but Amy had a question in the chat.
I do notice it. Yeah, I was going to bring it up for everybody, I think. She said she does annual testing to stay up on her health, and this week the results came back, and I guess she's going to get another test. She says, I know that I am not sick, but there is a little bit of doubt. So she wants to ask if Spirit feels any illness in her.
What test did she take?
Doesn't say specifically. Just
She's
annual
typing
testing.
She's typing.
She's typing? Okay. Is she on the live stream?
Oh,
yeah. Can you see her?
Yeah, she's right here.
Breast ultrasound is what she says.
Breast ultrasound.
Oh.
I never knew I could get 3 psychics quiet in one place. That's really wild.
I'm looking. I'm sorry. S is the other one.
I would ask Amy, I guess my first question to Amy would be, have you had a previous surgery or injury or something there? Because I'm trying to understand what I'm feeling, and I almost want to say like it's scar tissue. So I don't know if there's something previous there.
Amy can unmute, right?
I think she can. Well, I can unmute her if she can't. Let me see.
I can.
There's Amy.
Oh, yeah, she's on.
There's Amy.
There she is. Hi there, Amy.
Hi, how are y'all?
Thanks for joining us on the show. So I'll just let you answer the questions that they're raising directly.
So the first question for you, Amy, was there a previous operation in that area, or was there an injury?
So there was a biopsy in there a long time ago.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I wouldn't think that there would be scar tissue associated with that, but it's interesting because that's almost what it kind of feels like to me. But
I'm seeing it as emotional. I'm not seeing it as a physical thing. Because when I'm looking at it, it's it feels like it hasn't hit physically in the way I'm feeling it. So it looks a little kind of like what Dean said. It looks almost like whitish, and it's got like a little bit of a tail to it, but it doesn't. But that's something that is not a physical. I'm not seeing physical. You know what I mean?
Okay. My sister had passed away of breast cancer.
Okay, I have to talk.
What?
I was going to ask you, did you have anyone in your family who's passed from breast cancer?
Yes.
Okay, because I know for myself, my sister passed from breast cancer, and I had started feeling something or having something going on, and another friend who Rita knows, another psychic friend, I connected with her, and she said, it's you finding a way to be connected to her.
Oh.
So I don't know if that resonates with you, but I am getting like goosebumps over this whole thing, that it may not necessarily be you
Right.
manifesting this within you, but it's more like a connection, like feeling connected to that sibling. So, you want to uncreate and destroy everything that would create that within you to be able to have that connection with her. And go see some of these psychics instead to talk to her.
No, that explains why it feels emotional to me.
Right.
That's physical.
Okay.
So that's perfect.
And I have to say, once that was brought to my awareness, I could feel it. I'm like, okay. It made sense. It made sense to me, and it was my truth because I don't have anything going on with my breast.
Right. Yeah, but everybody is like overly careful when.
Of course.
Yeah.
They should be. You want people that are doing their job.
right.
Yes.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
but another side of that too is because there's a lot of breast cancer in my family. I don't know if you ever had the test done to see if there's anything that is within the genes that would create this. I don't believe in that anyway, but that's that thinking out there. So I know a lot of my aunts, cousins, they've had it, but it wasn't something that would be hereditary because they don't carry the gene for it.
Right.
I don't carry the gene for it. My sister didn't carry it. My aunts don't carry it.
Mm-hmm.
So that might give you peace of mind. Maybe I don't know if you've done that kind of a testing before.
I haven't yet, but I almost didn't want to because if I do have the gene for it, then I'm going to be worried about it. And I'm already doing everything that I can to.
Okay. So just keep declaring, keep declaring because we create our own reality. Mm-hmm. So, maybe you can hop on the bandwagon of, I'm just feeling my sister. And let that be your new belief. It's not mine. It's somebody, like, who does this belong to? Oh, this is my connection with my sister. Whoever it was. Yeah.
Does this resonate with you, Amy? Does this actually make sense?
Yeah, it does. It is. I feel like I have any kind of illness. I feel so good. And then I go to the medical community and then they're like, oh, well, wait, you have to do this and you have to do this because everybody else wants you to do the test.
Sign of the cross.
I'm not against the medical, but they want to just prove everything medically, and it's not. Right. I mean, especially a spiritual awakening, stuff turns on. Like, I even went to the ER just not to be stupid about it, but I knew it was nothing that I had going on really physically. I knew it was a part of my awakening, but I did get confirmation by going there, and I gave my family peace of mind,
Okay.
Spirit often tells me when people are going for tests, they say to me, have them go because it will ease their anxiety to know that the tests are negative. Instead of thinking, could it be? I'm not sure. That just brings anxiety. So
Right.
done. Don't make yourself crazy about it. And then you can throw a party after.
Yeah, and really trust what you know, because you know more than anybody. You have to find that trust within yourself of what you know to be your truth.
Yeah, it's just the next test. I don't want to do the next test at all.
Don't do it.
But I may have to. Well, it's complicated. I don't get
do what feels right for you. Do what feels right for you. Just do what feels right.
You're right. That's true. Thank you.
Sure.
You're welcome. Yeah, that's where listening to what's going on inside is probably the best thing. I mean, no matter what kind of psychic skills we have, or in my case, I feel like I have very little of them. It doesn't matter. I can still listen inside. It's not like I have to have a special ability for that. You know?
Right.
So,
it's your birthright. It's you. It's you. It's owning you by trusting what you know.
Yeah. We all have that ability, which is good.
It's harder for some, and I can attest to this, and I understand it. It's harder for some to come to that when they've grown up in a family that there was no trust. So then they don't know if what they're feeling is really what they can trust, because they never had someone at a young age to trust, you know. So I've had to work through that piece in this lifetime, and realize that even though it was like that as a child, I still could learn to trust me, because I was my own autonomy. Like I was my own person, regardless of who gave birth to me or who was involved with me. I could still feel that. So it just for people to understand that it can be hard for someone who's not been able to trust their father or their mother or whoever it is in their life at a young age, to then have to build that trust within yourself.
I think all of us can kind of appreciate that on some level, because, I mean, not that I had that kind of a trust issue in my family, but just for myself, transitioning from a total disbeliever into, oh my God, what's going on here? That in and itself is a trust journey. It's learning to trust this thing that feels good inside, but goes completely against everything that I had previously believed. Now I have to unlearn all this stuff that I learned over the course of, at that point, about 45, 50 years, something like that. I mean, that's a lot of unlearning to do, you know? So, yeah, it can be anybody. Anybody can have trust issues. I honestly think the reason that I've been doing the show so long, that I have such great people like you to do the show with, and that so many people are tuning in, more and more people are tuning in, is because we're all learning how to trust. I mean, that's really the bottom line of learning how all this stuff works, is learning to trust the process, learning to trust what we're feeling, learning to trust that the law of attraction works, learning to trust energy, learning to trust all of it. That's a lot of trust to learn about.
Right.
Mm-hmm. It can be so simple, because you just have to go within and feel what you feel. That's what you trust, is what you feel, not all those voices out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, learning to hear what that voice is saying too also helps. I mean, it can get drowned out pretty easily, depending on what we go through. Well, I got a little feedback from a listener named Joe. He says, "You all help me so much every time I listen. Normally listening on the podcast," he says, "I don't have social media, but I have to let you know I really feel blessed, so thank you." Oh, and actually, this is Bridge. That's Bridge who's writing under the name Joe B. So Bridge, whose question was answered earlier on. Very
awesome.
Good. So we got a few minutes left on the show. I want to make sure I get our promo message in, because we always do that at some point, and I usually wait till the end, so I'm not going to wait quite to the end. But that is, of course, if you are not yet subscribed to the LOA Today podcast app, which is available for both iPhones and Androids, please just download it. You can get it at the Play Store on Androids, at the App Store on iPhones, and more and more of the listeners are using it, which is great. Still have a few issues that we're trying to iron out. One issue that I've almost got fixed is one where it stops playing if you try to go use another app. That one's about ready to get fixed, I think. But thanks to everybody who's been using it. And please share the app with more people, because that's the easy way for more people to find out about the podcast. And plus, you get the goodies package. I mean, you got Linda's High Vibe Living video course in there, among other things. So take advantage of that. And before we go, I just wanted to give each of you ladies a chance. Anything more you want to ask Dean about while we still have him here? Because it's been a great visit, but, it's coming to an end.
Well, let's ask Dean how people get a hold of him.
That's a good idea.
Dean, how do people get
Or you can go to the website at www.themilitarymedium.com or deanmcmurray.com. So just check out the Military Medium and it'll pop up. So, and then of course on Facebook, the Military Medium. I'm on Twitter too, but I'm not as active. I'm more active on Facebook. And then and then also on iTunes if you want to check out the Red, White, and You show as well. So you can do that as well. So on several channels. But
very good. Yeah. I'm not sure when Chief Harold Peck is going to be able to join us. Maybe perhaps next week. We don't know. But if possible, I'm going to try to coordinate a time for the two of you to be on together. That was the plan for today, and it kind of fell apart because he couldn't make it.
That'd be fun.
I thought it'd be great to have two military guys talking about their hippie shit experiences together. That would be just
hippie shit, right? Right.
Dean, it was really a pleasure, hon.
Oh, thank you so much, Rita and Linda. Thank you guys for, it was just really fun to get to know you guys and Walt, of course. Thanks for having me on the show. But yeah, it was really fun today. So thank you.
You're welcome. And any last stuff before we sign off? Otherwise, we'll finish it up. Linda, Rita, got anything?
Well, good.
Okay, I guess we're good. So, Dean, thank you once again for joining us. It has been wonderful. This has been interesting, too, having this third psychic voice in answering the questions of listeners and so forth. I mean... Yeah,
that was great.
Yeah, especially like when you were working with Amy's question, you guys were working it together. Like, Dean picked up the first piece, and Rita picked up a piece, and Linda said, "Oh, wait, I got it." And she pieced the whole thing together. I mean, it was great. It was like teamwork. It was wonderful.
Linda, I got to talk. Okay.
I got to talk.
Takes a village.
That's right. So that was really cool.
You know what I would say to everybody too? Let's just keep sending the love because the planet, everybody on it, we need it. Let's just keep sending out that love.
Love that.
I love it.
I agree too. By the way, also listeners know about the Odyssey that's been going on with my cat Joy. He's doing much better. Thank you to everybody who has been sending their prayers and their good wishes and wishes for him to eat today. I'll just give you the little update today. He got up. He was able to eat cat food on his own. He got around the house. He hasn't had to have any painkillers. He was asking to go outside. He's pretty much his old self again. So, you guys really helped a lot. Thank you to everybody for doing that. So thank you guys. Absolutely. Thank you to our live streamers. Thank you especially to our podcast listeners as well. And we will see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.